Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
6.5, 7 3-pointers last year. Like, that is extremely high for a big man. So, although he's 7 foot, doesn't make him a big. Like, he loves to playing around out on the perimeter. And when I watch him switch 1 through 5, he's not bad at moving those puppies. I actually love this addition. I actually think that they're trying to do it their way, and they're trying to go back to the traditional 2 big, and I think it's okay, because eventually it's going to move back in that direction. We have seen it time and time again.
That's right.
There you go. Get it out.
Get the flag here. Oh, that's right.
I can't.
I'm the only one with a flag.
You're the only one with the howl towel.
Shoes off.
Yeah, there it is.
Hold on.
Shoes off. Come on. Get that slipper off.
I like that slip.
Wow.
Oh, that's a
Matches the
nice
sweatshirt.
slipper. That's a nice, that's a
slipper
quality
guy.
Oh, I love slippers.
Not a slipper guy.
So comfortable. So very comfortable.
You're not a slipper guy?
Hate slippers.
What do you just wear socks or you go barefoot?
Socks or barefoot. I don't like.
I hate
Feet
barefoot.
get cold? It's winter in
No.
Minnesota, you know?
Barefoot, unnecessary.
No, despite my tiny little frame, I run insanely hot. I don't really understand why.
Yeah, but slippers
I
shouldn't
have
make
no
that.
body fat on me. I'm almost 30 years old, but I run incredibly hot, so I don't like extra warmth.
Slippers are
That's your
fantastic.
I would have
body.
pegged you for a cold guy. Not gonna
I know.
lie.
Most people do.
Would have
and
pegged you
everyone-
for,
yeah.
being a little chilly.
Barefoot's a big mistake, folks. Big mistake.
Yeah.
Glass, shards of glass, things that you can step on that penetrate your foot. Barefoot, don't do it.
Or you could clean your floor. There's just shards of glass in your house. Just
You never know where there might be some type of thing that can
a burning charcoal bed.
go
You
into
never
your
know when
foot.
you never know.
You step outside, slipper, you're covered. Barefoot, you're screwed.
Life advice from Judd Zulgad. Boys, it is a glorious Tuesday here because we get to talk once again about Rudy Gobert in a Timberwolves uniform for the third time since Friday. So Dex has been on vacation this weekend. You were part of our emergency episode. Then Judd and I came back yesterday and said, all right, it's been about 72 hours. We've had some time to digest this. And we both agreed after 72 hours away, we love this trade even more than 3 days ago, despite guys like Bill Simmons, some of the national media, Zach Lowe, Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo just hammering the Wolves for this trade. But let's dive in even more. I think we should start with Declan because for this Statements, usually Statements Monday, it's a Statements Tuesday here on the show. I have plenty more takes. I'm sure Judd does too, but we've already given like 2 hours of takes on this trade across 2 podcasts. So let's lead off with Declan here on this Statements Tuesday.
My statement's pretty simple. It's what are we so worried about? What are we so worried about with this trade? Full disclosure, all right? I love the Twins. I love the Vikings. I love the Wild. I have put the Wolves fourth on my pecking order of things that I've been mostly interested from the Minnesota sports scene in my lifetime. Now, that's mostly because they traded away the superstar when I was like 10, 11 years old, and I remember the run to the Western Conference Finals. I even remember them getting beaten the first round numerous times. But for all the wrong reasons, or all the right reasons, I should say, I kind of put the Wolves on the back burner as I went into my teenage and high school years because they just weren't that interesting to me. But now they're starting to turn a corner a little bit. Anthony Edwards is exciting. They make a little nice run and give the Grizzlies a run for their money. And this is a franchise that hasn't won a playoff series in 20 years. They made the playoffs twice, right, in the last 20 years. And they pushed all of their chips in and now have one of the best starting fives in the NBA. I don't understand what the fear-mongering is. What is the worst-case scenario with this trade? The worst-case scenario is they're still the Timberwolves, that they're just middling and never flirting with being a contender. Literally, look at the trade, and what is so scary? What could happen? We gave up the 6th grader that's an AAU star right now? Like, who cares about the 2029 pick? I just don't understand what the big fear is. And, yes, there's pundits that have ripped this trade. My guy, Nick Wright, who I love on Fox Sports, and some people kind of label him as the hot take artist. In fact, he did a great dive with this on Le Batard like a month ago where he talks about giving his takes and whatnot. And he went on a whole rant. And it's a little long, but it's worth playing. And he called it the most egregious overpay in NBA history. Here's Nick Wright on this trade.
But you know how you know the Timberwolves overpaid? The fact that the Jazz were able to squeeze that 2026 pick swap out of them. I have respect for the people now running the Timberwolves, but did they think the Jazz were going to walk away from the deal if they wouldn't give them that swap? It's like, all right, we're going to give you 4 firsts, 4 players, but I don't want to give you the swap. And Ainge was like, you got to include the swap or I'm out of here. Not doing it. They're like, okay, give him the swap. Like, what? You know how I also know that this was an overpay? Let me show you a headline and a sub-headline from an article that doesn't even have a listed offer. Minnesota sends a steep package, including 5 players and 5 picks. That is from the NBA's official website. So the league, in an unauthored article, just for the league, the Adam Silver's league office is like, we got to write this up. How do we describe it? Can we call it the most egregious overpay in NBA history? We are NBA.com. What about a steep package?
So Nick Wright thinks it's an absurd deal. Yep. Bill Simmons thinks it's an absurd deal. Ryan Russillo, Zach Lowe thinks it's a bad deal. So all these prominent NBA national talking heads all think it's a bad deal. I don't know, Judd. What do you make of the national backlash here?
I think it's the simplest way to go about trying to break down a trade. And keep in mind, too, we are right now in prime time moves, right? Like we are right now. So there's a lot of basketball, so to speak, in the air potentially. I think the easiest way to break down this trade is to look at the amount that the Wolves sent to the Jazz and say, whoa, overpay, terrible overpay. I think what it is it's a serious disinterest in trying to look at what this trade means, especially from the Wolves' end, right? Because if you were to break it down like Perk did, to me, the cat thing is the biggest thing here. It's how does this impact your star player? And as far as I can tell, the thought process will be positively. It should help him quite a bit. It certainly challenges him to get the most from himself, which I think is a smart move. I think it's laziness. I just think it's so simple to look at the steep price that the Wolves paid and basically say, okay, I need a take here.
But it's
preferably
not
a hot take. And so no, but that's my opinion is that it's not being really broken down. It's being looked at and it's, oh my God, a guy who is in the eyes of the league aging and it's one player for all of this. What a stupid trade. That's the easy hot take.
Well, okay, a couple things. People act like the Wolves have 10 options of what they can do and add to this team. Well, they already explored a few of them. They tried to get DeJounte Murray from San Antonio. And I don't know why those talks broke down, or maybe the Wolves decided that Gobert was going to be a better and Gobert is a better player and more impactful player than DeJounte Murray. But so the people that are saying the Wolves overpaid. Okay, well, was there an option? Maybe Nick Wright is correct. Maybe they could have sharpened the pencil more with Danny Ainge and said, all right, we're not going to do the pick swap, which is kind of hilarious that he's right about that. Of all the things they're giving up, and then and also we're gonna swap picks if it's advantageous for the Jazz in 2026. But if the Wolves came back and said, listen, we got to draw the line somewhere. We're not going to give you the 2029 pick, and we're not going to give you Ball Morrow. Would the Jazz have balked at the trade? And so if the answer is, the Jazz would have balked at that and they had 3 other deals lined up, then, okay, well, you gave up what you had to give up. But show me the other 4 trades the Wolves had on the table that bring in an impactful player like Rudy Gobert, who is, without hyperbole, one of the greatest defensive players the league has ever seen. And I think that is part of the reason why people are having a hard time wrapping their brains around, even these guys who watch basketball on a nightly basis, these talking heads like Bill Simmons, Nick Wright. When you watch Rudy Gobert play, even when you watch him for the 35 minutes he's out there, the impact that he has doesn't show up as obviously in a box score as it does for a Kevin Durant or a James Harden or some of these more offensive-centric players. Karl Anthony Towns even, as a 7-footer that's shooting 3-pointers from 5 feet beyond the arc. You can see that, and you can see it in a box score. Rudy Gobert's impact is as boring as a great defensive tackle in the NFL. They're just kind of sitting in the middle, and they're not really getting sacks. They're not really, they're not leading the team in tackles or anything like that. They're not throwing touchdown passes, but they are jacking up the opposing team's run game, right? Pat Williams, for the 3 years the Vikings held opponents to like 75 yards per game on the ground. Historically, that's what Rudy Gobert is. When a guard dribbles into the paint and sees a 7'9" wingspan and then says, uh-oh, and then aborts mission, and now the shot clock's down to 5, he doesn't get a block, he doesn't get a steal, it's not a three-pointer made, but it's a possession blown sky high because he exists. The value of Rudy Gobert is that he exists in the paint. And so I almost feel like these people that are like they're not watching him and they're not understanding the impact that he has because it's not as obvious as offensive players.
They're looking purely at one thing, the exchange. That's the only thing.
Okay, so let's say, cool, the Wolves get to keep their 2029 pick. Does that make everyone feel better? Oh, now it's good value.
But they've got
Who cares?
Right. But you're talking about this as a Wolves fan and a person who covers the team and has spent how many hours since Friday thinking about this?
Every hour, actually.
They are.
I've not slept.
Yeah.
They are the McDonald's of takes. They got to sling them out, baby. Like, they've moved on. So, like, they're slinging takes. Okay, take here, take there. They don't have time to sit down and think, oh, okay, I get this completely. Because if you get it completely, right or wrong, you have a far better understanding of what Conley is trying to do here and Finch. And what they're trying to do is also unlock potential or not potential, that's the wrong word. What they're trying to do is unlock star players to make them even better, which I like. But they're not looking at that. They are Burger King, man. They are putting burgers out there and fries, and they got to go,
and
drive
to
up window.
Back to Burger King for a second. Okay, so you hate the Rudy Gobert trade because it was too much to give up. That's the type of deal that you would make for a Kevin Durant. Okay, well, show me where the Timberwolves were close to trading for Kevin Durant in the last 72 hours. Was that an option for them? Is that a thing? Like, because Kevin Durant, I'm assuming, gets some sort of say in where he goes next, or he could just put up a stink like he's doing right now with Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, did the Wolves have door number 1, Rudy Gobert, door number 2, Kevin Durant, and door number 3, some other superstar, and they were just choosing those 3? No!
I got a statement off that. Play the sounder because you're right, and here's why. The deal is actually favorable. Oh, my God. What did he just say? Did he just say that trade might be? He is.
Hot take.
This is the Herschel Walker trade. Judd has to be wrong. Why is Judd defending the team? Is Judd a homer now? No, here's why.
It's a face turn of epic proportions here.
Yeah.
To answer Phil's question, the Wolves did call on KD. And you know what the Nets said? Cool, let's talk. Let's talk about your star players. We want Ant. We want Jaden. What about exactly right, okay? So keep in mind that I believe that the tone of this show is entirely different if there are, let's say, 2 draft picks that went to the Jazz and Jaden McDaniels, which is what they wanted. The Wolves said, you got to come off that. Like, we're not doing that. So, and I think that if they had included Jaden and, let's say, 2 draft picks and then basically the rest of the crew that got thrown in, which I don't really care about that much, I think the tone of this show is entirely different because now you've traded a good young piece. You've traded a Levine-like piece, which, by the way, came back to bite you in the ass. So I would actually argue, because I don't think any one of those players that you dealt is like a oh my God, I can't believe that, right? Now, the draft picks could hurt, but as we've all talked about, if the Wolves achieve what they want, those draft picks are going to drop down into the 20s. So I would actually make a case that Tim Conley, and this is why I think the Wolves have been privately so pleased thus far. Tim Conley actually got the Jazz to the point he wanted because they started with McDaniels. And KD, you would have had to give up assets that you love to get KD. And I agree, I'm not going to potentially weaken my team in some ways by getting a player just so I can have a different player.
Yeah. I have so many more thoughts on this, but real quick, let's shout out. Some people ask us, what's the best way that we can help you guys as you build Score North and Mackey and Judd? And quite simply, the answer is listen or watch as often as you can and support our partners is the second thing you can do. And Spiral Light Candles is back here, Judd, for the summer.
That's exactly right. And welcome back. And I want to talk right now about winning. It's what teams are trying to do, right?
Okay,
it's what the
Bill.
Wolves
Okay,
are
Bill.
trying
All right,
to do.
Sheen. Yeah.
I want to
Okay,
talk
yeah.
about, because it's all about winning, right? And I want to talk about a very important thing in your house, a winning scent. That's right, a winning scent. Now, I didn't used to be a scent guy. Full disclosure, Judd was not
we know.
a scent guy until, you know what?
We're in different studios for a reason.
Spiralite showed up at my house, and Dawn's like,
they
"These
don't
things
replace showers, just so you know.
Yeah.
are fantastic. Stop with this, because the candles are fantastic." And Dawn said these things are great. In fact, she started to get more and more, and I said, "Oh my God, our house smells so good. Our house smells fantastic." Not to mention the fact that they're very cool. It is a perfect gift. In fact, I would submit that it is a gift right now, that if you start to get some delivered to your house, which is as simple as going to spirallightcandles.com, that you could, you're going to be watching football, right? All fall long. And perhaps the gal is going to say, do you really have to watch that much football? Well, imagine making your house a better place right now. Imagine currying favor. Spiral Light Candles will do that. These things are absolutely fantastic. SpiralLightCandles.com. Check them out, and you will see.
Also, a shout out to Federated Insurance. They've been partners with the Timberwolves through a lot of thick and thin over the years, and with us too here at Score North. And they partner with businesses for over 100 years to help maximize the success of your business. Also, coming up later this month is the Federated Challenge, which helps raise money, $44 million since 2005. For Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is one of the best mentoring organizations you're going to find. One-to-one relationships with children facing adversity. If you want to find out more about how you can become a big, or just more about what Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Federated can do for the community, federatedchallenge.org. That's federatedchallenge.org. Okay. People are disrespecting Rudy Gobert's offensive impact. That's right. I said offensive impact. That's the biggest criticism I've heard is, in addition to defensively, he got played off the court against the Clippers a couple years ago and against the Mavericks this year. You and I did a deep dive on that on our Monday episode, so check that out. But on the offensive side of the ball, you don't have to guard him. He's just kind of a statue, and he doesn't really have any discernible skills. He doesn't shoot, really. Let me give you a stat. Forget about the aesthetics. Forget about the fact that he's not going to do like a crossover step back three like maybe Karl Anthony Towns has baked into his game.
Sure.
Rudy Gobert scores 16 points per game on 8 shot attempts per game. He does not shoot three-pointers. So do the math on that again. He does not shoot three-pointers. He scores 16 points a game on 8 shot attempts per game. That is bonkers efficiency. Mm-hmm. So now, is he going one-on-one in isolation from the wing and dribble, drive, pass? No, it's a lot of it's pick and rolls where he's crashing the hoop, catching lobs, cleaning up the glass on the offensive side. But no matter how you stack it, okay, the Utah Jazz get to start with 15 points per game on 8 shot attempts. The average team in the NBA shoots the ball about 90 times in a game. And so now for the other 82 shots, you only have to score 100 points on 82 shots to be one of the highest scoring teams in the NBA because you have Rudy Gobert doing all of this stuff inside. The Jazz last year, I guess I should have posed this maybe as a question for you, as a trivia question, but I'll just give you the answer. The Jazz were the highest scoring offensive team in the NBA last year per 100 possessions. Not because Gobert was holding them back, but because he was giving you 15 points on 8 shot attempts, 16 points on 8 shot attempts to start the game, basically. So I think if you look at it in the right way, he's an offensive asset. The way that he can put shots back and score with so few shots. I think people are kind of disrespecting him a little bit.
Wave the towel. Wave the damn towel again.
Okay.
Just do it. Wave the towel. Take the shoe off. You know what? Damn it. The Timberwolves are fun to talk about.
Shoes are off.
And they might be damn good. You don't know.
He led the NBA in effective field goal percentage and he literally makes like 70% of his shots.
Yeah.
Because he's not taking dumb wasted shots. And by the way,
And another thing.
these people, like, Were you looking to add? So you're keeping D'Lo here, and by the way, D'Lo as a pick and roll ball handler with both Cat and Rudy Gobert as very different options as the pick men.
Right.
Very dangerous. There's going to be an elevation of D'Lo's pick and roll game here if they turn to that set. But you got D'Lo taking 16 to 20 shots. You got Cat taking 18, 20 shots. You want? Did people want to trade for a guy that shoots 20 times? No, I'll take the guy that's ridiculous defensively, shoots about 8 times, and scores 16 points on those 8 shots. Thank you very much.
And improves the team around him. Or players, right? He's going to improve Cat, D'Lo. I mean, his presence is going to allow McDaniels to play more.
Back to McLaughlin.
That's the other thing that people we're not talking enough, and we touched on this on our podcast Monday. But I think another really key thing is the amount of the young players this now allows to play because you cleared your roster out of some veterans. Noel, McDaniels. I mean, Jaden McDaniels deserves this chance.
Mm-hmm. Jalen Noel deserves this chance.
Yeah, Noel
absolutely.
does too.
And they both might be damn good. I think McDaniels is going to be spectacular.
Yeah,
like I think he's going to be a really, really good player.
Jalen Noel was just blocked on the depth chart. Really, like whenever he got out there, for the most part, he was a scoring spark, and he can run the offense. He can also just sort of get his own shot, get to the rim, shoot 3-pointers. So yeah, it's a little bit like when the Twins traded AJ Pierzynski, and then Joe Mauer gets it. There's a guy to kind of step in here and take some minutes. I don't know that Noel is going to be a borderline Hall of Famer, but you're giving a talented guy some extra minutes for sure.
Dex?
Okay.
All right, my next statement. Hammer the money line. My statement is hammer the money line. So from FanDuel, they wrote this up over the weekend. So the Wolves entered July 1 as a big long shot, plus 11,000 to win the NBA title. But after landing Rudy Gobert, they have climbed up to plus 3,600, which is the 12th best odds in the league to win the NBA title.
Feels a little low to me.
It probably is still low.
Feels like feels disrespect to me.
That's why you put $100 on it now with all the Wolves truthers out there. You can have a humongous payday, a nice little bonus in your bank account come June, mid-June when the Warriors when the Wolves beat the Warriors on the Western Conference Finals and they get to the NBA championship. Hammer your money line here. Put your money where your mouth is. I just don't get why. Back to the original point here, I just don't understand why we're so afraid of what could happen to this trade. We just laid out why two young players like Jalen Noel and Jaden McDaniels now are probably going to thrive. Malik Beasley's not going to be chucking up just 12 shots and missing 9 of them. This is a great trade for the Wolves. It puts them into the conversation as Western Conference contenders, something that really hasn't been said much in my entire lifetime. So hammer the money line, and let's see what this trade does, because I think it's going to work out for the Wolves.
We are so scarred. That's our problem. We are so scarred.
I can't tell if it's the same people, but like the Twins never make any big moves.
Right. You can't have it both ways.
And then the Timberwolves do, and it's like, well, I feel like they overpaid. I mean,
well, and it's one thing to have discussions, which we have certainly done, right, about that the Cousins thing didn't work out as planned or has not to date. But we've never gone back and said, well, you know what? In retrospect, on that day, we hated that move. Like, if you're going to make a splash, I'm going to give you credit. Yeah. Unless you do something that's just so out stupid. But I mean, if you are going to try to improve your team, if you're going to say, you know what, we're not good enough, we're going to make a splash move, why would we be like, no, don't know. What are you doing? Those draft picks are going to, that's what I don't get. Like, and I'm panic. I'm the guy on this show who is as negative as anybody. I'll say this looks stupid. And in retrospect, there are things that don't go well, but I'm all for fun.
Here's another thing on the, what if this thing goes wrong front? What does it look like if this thing goes wrong? Well, I still think they're a playoff team. Because to me, if it goes wrong, it's more of a 7-game series you get yourself into against a team that can play small ball like the Clippers did, the Mavericks. And there's a lot of them. I mean, the Warriors can play small ball. So I don't mean to, and we dove into a lot of these too on yesterday's episode, but so there are definitely questions and they will be answered. And those questions are going to pile up in the right 7-game series. But let's say you make the playoffs and you get bounced in the first round a couple times or the second round or whatever. You just don't do as much in the 4-year window of Gobert's contract as you wanted to. Guess how old Anthony Edwards is going to be in 4 years from now? 25.
Yeah, he's a kid still. Yeah.
He'll be entering the prime of his NBA career under a max contract because he's going to sign a max contract that kicks in like 2 years from now.
Yep.
So when the Gobert thing fades out, which is the Gobert contract is more attached to Cat's age window than Ant's age window because there's a 10-year gap between Gobert and Ant. But if it doesn't work that well, you still get Anthony Edwards emerging into his prime, Jaden McDaniels emerging into his prime in 4 years, and Cat at the age of 30 on a supermax contract. So I'm with Dex off the top of the show. What are people scared of? What is your fear?
But the Twins let go of Ortiz and the Walker trade. And they passed on Steph Curry. Something's going to go wrong. That's what our fear is. No. Okay, my next statement is off of these points. Get ready for splash. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minnesota Timberwolves, these are not at this point, despite the fact that he still owns this team, Glenn Taylor's Wolves, okay? The Glenn Taylor years, as far as the bad moves, bad hires, all of that, and for the most part, a real lack of splash, those days are now gone. Because A-Rod and Laurie are here to fry some big fish. And they ain't going to just sitting back and saying, oh, that's too bad that we're bad, or that's too bad that our team sucks. These guys are going to make moves. I believe within 3 years, they will be willing to pay into or plan to pay into the luxury tax, which is a huge thing because that was a thing I think Glenn did like once or twice. But the point is, get ready for splash. This is not the last one, too. Like, I don't know when the next one is, but these guys are going to look to make this, if they can, a destination type of team. Things will change. I think at this point in time, it's going to change to be much more fun. I don't know if a championship is in the cards, but I do know this. These guys are going to want to have an atmosphere that is probably unlike anything the majority of Wolves fans have ever seen.
Yeah, they aren't, A-Rod and Laurie aren't saddled with decades of just failure and the malaise that has just hovered over this franchise. They're coming from their own unique backgrounds of success, right? Alex Rodriguez, I get that he was enhanced by some needles here and there, but Alex Rodriguez is one of the greatest baseball players of all time on the greatest franchise of all time, the Yankees, and he won a World Series. And Mark Laurie is one of the great businessmen of the last 20 or 30 years. He has sold multiple companies for billions of dollars to Amazon and Walmart, and he's got more companies that he's spinning off right now. And he doesn't live in Mankato, small town, bumpkin sort of lifestyle like
Cuban,
Glenn
probably.
Taylor does. Yeah, they are much more Mark Cuban, Shark Tank type guys, and they look at this as a huge opportunity to do something special. They don't have these limiting beliefs and this sort of scarcity mindset that a lot of us have as Minnesota sports fans and followers and media too over the last 30 years. I mean, I get it. I get the instinct of you're always kind of watching out for what bad thing could happen, or instead of this trade coming in and you thinking best case scenario, which is you have two of the most uniquely skilled big men that complement each other perfectly. How are they going to impose that on other teams? You're thinking, well, how are other teams going to impose their small ball lineups on the West? It's like, well, it's all in the eye of the beholder. And I get that most people who've been following Minnesota sports haven't seen anything from the men's teams near a championship in 3+ decades. But these guys don't come in with that mindset at all.
Right. And the Vikings screw up at times, but since they were bought by the Wilfs, they do make splashes. And like, that's the thing is, the Vikings just are now at a point where our discussions are, it's time to go. It's time to win a Super Bowl. It's right. The Wolves aren't there yet, but I think that the goal is at some point here within the next, I don't know, few years, that becomes the next goal. Like right now, if I say Timberwolves, championship. It's really hard to get the old brain around that one. Like, it's still difficult, but that's the goal. And the goal is to have a team, and the Vikings do this, that aim big and make splash moves. And that's what's fun about sports.
I have a lot more, I feel like, but I don't know. There's some great Gobert Cat comparisons that people are throwing out.
You want to give us one more?
I'll give you this one. Maybe we can talk about it more in depth, but I'll give you a quick one here. My last statement for you guys. We'll talk some Twins too. My favorite Gobert Cat comparison to this point that I've seen is the 2010-11 Dallas Mavericks that paired 6'11", 7 Dirk Nowitzki, legendary big man shooter, right? He's more of a perimeter style big man, with Tyson Chandler, who I think was one of the most underrated rebounders and rim protectors. I mean, he bounced around a lot of teams. He was deemed a bust because he was drafted by the Bulls in the post-Michael Jordan era, but then he actually became like Defensive Player of the Year. He had a 20-year NBA career, made almost $200 million. And for that season, those guys paired perfectly together, complementary skill sets. They beat the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals in 6 games. And then the next year, Tyson Chandler signed a big contract with the Knicks and became Defensive Player of the Year. So that's 10 years ago, and I think it's a good example of how two guys who are 7 feet tall can complement each other skill set wise. I think what I would worry about is that 10 years ago, those guys didn't have to worry nearly as much about chasing small ball lineups and 3-point shooters on the perimeter like today's NBA. In fact, the average team 10 years ago took 18 threes per game. Now the average team takes 35 threes per game. So that number has doubled. And the same, I've heard the Tim Duncan, David Robinson thing from 25 years ago. That's an even different NBA where teams were taking like 10 threes per game. So I like the Dirk and Tyson Chandler comparison. I do wonder, okay, if you put those guys out there for having to chase 35 threes around 40 sometimes, how would that pairing hold up? How often could they be on the court at the same time? But you also get to impose your size and will on opposing teams, which, let's not forget, it's not all about reacting to other teams. It's what are you doing to other teams that they have to react to because the smallest guy in your starting lineup is D'Lo at 6'4".
Yeah. So what's the fine line here then? Because you definitely want to be far more aggressive, I think, and physical than the Wolves were against the Grizzlies in the first round. But yet, to your point, there are teams that can go small. Like what's the trade-off there? What's because, like, look, if the Wolves had Gobert against the Grizzlies, I think that they win that series probably in like 5 or 6 games.
I agree. Against that team, I agree.
Exactly right. So when teams can or do go small, Phil, what will Chris Finch need to do to counter that? Well, because you can't just say, well, we're screwed now.
Yeah, the good news is those guys aren't, if they're both going to play 35 minutes, they're not required to play all 35 minutes together, right? They can, you can space those guys out if you need to. Offensively, Cat provides a ton of mismatches in your favor. So you might take leads during the middle portion of the game that are insurmountable at the end because of the work that you've done to get to that point. What do the Wolves do if faced with a similar situation that Utah was faced with in the second half of Game 6 against the Clippers 2 years ago, or I think it was Game 6 against the Mavericks this year, where they pull their big man off the court and they put a shooting guard in there and now they're playing 5 out? Part of the answer is perimeter defense, not Rudy Gobert. Judd, you and I talked about this yesterday, but look at those Jazz lineups, the other 4 guys oftentimes on the court. Mike Conley, 6'1", not a great defensive player. Donovan Mitchell, 6'1", not a great defensive player. Bogdanovich, a lot of guys who are sniper 3-point shooters, but they're not going to stand in the way of, an aggressive ball handler on the perimeter. And then, okay, if you're playing 5 out and the perimeter defense up top breaks down, now Gobert has to figure out, okay, do I have to jump into the paint and then leave my guy in the corner? So the hope is that the Timberwolves, with Jaden McDaniels getting another year older and Anthony Edwards, we've seen him play clamps defense when he wants to. He'll get another year older. The guy they brought in from Memphis, Kyle Anderson, is a really good perimeter defender. So they might have just a better set of players to keep the perimeter more intact than Utah did the last couple years. Mm-hmm. And then that will make Rudy Gobert's job a lot easier, and Karl Anthony Towns too. I think the biggest question though is if those guys have to defend 5-out small ball lineups, what does that look like? Do you pull one of them off the court? And that's going to be up to Chris Finch. But then people are forgetting all the other benefits that they're going to have the rest of the game, and the size and the rebounding and the block shots and stuff. Somebody did a great YouTube video, and I posted this on Twitter a couple days ago, explaining the math. Like people get so obsessed with 3-point defense. And the Clippers in that famous game 6 2 years ago, when they had like a 34-point turnaround in the second half. It might have been more than that. The Clippers went 14 of 19 from 3-point range. So yeah, like the 5-out lineup gave them a lot more open looks, but how often are they going to go 14 of 19? So it magnified it by them. What if they would have gone, 8 of 18 or 8 of 19, which is still a good percentage? We're not talking about this because they probably lose the game. So the video that I saw was a mathematical breakdown of, okay, if you give a team 100 possessions at the rim and 100 possessions from 3, based on the average percentage of makes in both spots, the rim protection is much more critical to slowing down opposing teams than perimeter defense. Both are important, but clamping down the rim is more important. And then there's going to be nights sometimes where teams get hot. It's today's NBA, and you get run out of the gym in the third or fourth quarter. So no, there's so much more to dive into with that. I know that our guy Kyle Tigey has some thoughts on flagrant howls this week too. So it'll be fun. Has Jim Peterson tweeted anything out? Have we seen anything from
Patrick?
Jim
Talked to him. He's quoted at the end of Patrick's column that Patrick wrote for Saturday for the Star Tribune.
Is he pumped?
I think his quote was his quote when asked about how this was going to work with Gobert introduced to the mix was, "In Chris Finch, I trust."
Okay.
His feeling is that Finchy has the ability to come up with ways to make things work that we might not be thinking of.
Finchy.
Yeah. Old Finchy McFincherson.
Well, I mean, that's a key part of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, boys. Well, it's the Rudy Gobert era.
This is great. You know what?
Get it.
I am all in. This is fantastic.